Half a day and good evening. Thank you everyone for being here today. The Committee on Education, Air Transportation, and Statistics Research and Planning will now continue this virtual informational briefing. Today is July 2nd, 2020, and the time is 5:06 5:06 p.m. For the record, and in accordance with the Open Government Law, public notices were sent out via email to all senators, stakeholders, and all main media broadcasting outlets on Tuesday, June 16, 2020. And the second notice on Tuesday, June 30, 2020. Notice of today's virtual informational briefing was also available on the Guam Legislature's website. Okay. Before we proceed with the virtual informational briefing, the legislature has general rules of conduct that must be followed. All must abide by the rules of conduct and quality assurance standards. Please keep video on at all times and ensure you are in a room with little interruptions and adequate lighting, specifically to make sure the participant's face is visible at all times. The host of this hearing will mute participants until called upon the chair. When called to speak, please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking into the microphone. Members of the committee wishing to speak may indicate via the in-app feature chat box. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. The order of questioning will begin with the panel of senators who shall complete their lines of questioning for each respective item on the agenda. Upon completion of the panel's line of questioning, the chair will pose questions. Each member will be allowed to pose a question to an individual testifying for a round and will be provided another round if needed. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal interference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this general rule of conduct will result in the removal from the public hearing by the host. Today, I've called this virtual informational briefing to provide the people of Guam with an update on the Guam Department of Education preparedness and institutional continuity plans for the summer school program and the upcoming school year 2020 to 2021. Because of the current pandemic, I wanted the public to be informed of how Guam's school system plans to move forward with educating our students. We want to ensure that our students are receiving adequate and quality education in a way that does not endanger their health and safety and the safety of others. Today's virtual informational briefing will provide discussions on the Guam Department of Education's summer school program and curriculum, the school year 2020 to 2021, and the impacts of COVID-19 in the school environment. I hope that everyone at home listening will better understand Guam Department of Education's plans and measures towards providing the learning opportunities to every student on Guam. I would like to thank the Minority Leader, Senator Telena, for her presence here today. Thank you, Senator. And now, Mr. Superintendent, I will go ahead and hand it over to you, and we will move forward with the presentation. I think perhaps we can address the summer school program and curriculum, and you can go ahead and proceed into briefing the people on the school year 2021, and then we'll open it up for the questions of the panel. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Okay. Howard, thank you, Vice Chair and members of the committee. If I could, I know that this is, first of all, just to thank you and say that this is an important part of our effort to really ensure that the public has an opportunity to listen in on what's happening and what's being planned for the school year, given the impact of COVID-19. So, we plan to do a lot of this, but definitely this public informational briefing is helpful, and we do urge and hope that people will listen in or come back and listen to the recording to get information on what's happening. Before I start, if I could beg the indulgence of the committee, we do have online our chairwoman, Ms. Maria Gutierrez, our vice chair, Mark Mendiola, Ms. Lou Beneventi, who is head of a curriculum and instructional committee, as well as Ms. Feli Angel, our newest board member. And if I could, asked, I know the Madam Chairwoman wanted to make an opening statement in light of this important discussion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Madam Chair, Chairwoman of the Board of Education, Mrs. Gutierrez, please proceed.
Thank you. Honorable Telena, good afternoon to everyone that's watching us live. Honorable Telena C. Nelson, Vice Speaker and Chairwoman, Committee on Education, Air Transportation, Statistics, Research, and Planning. Half a day, Vice Speaker Nelson and committee members. My name is Maria Gutierrez, Chairwoman of the Guam Education Board. I am present today via virtual on behalf of the Guam Education Board to thank you for hosting this informational meeting, a briefing focused on the upcoming school year 2021. Earlier this week, the Guam Education Board approved the recommendations of the district School Readiness Task Force, which was appointed by the Superintendent, John Fernandez, in May to review options for the reopening of schools as the island recovers from COVID-19. I am pleased to report that the task force led by Mr. Deputy Superintendent Joe Sanchez and supported by other deputies, administrators, and staff did a tremendous job in addressing the challenges of the upcoming school year. Seeking input from all stakeholders and being very transparent at work. And Vice Speaker, I participated at all of this June meeting with this committee task force. The plan that is being discussed today focuses on safety first, provides options for learning to all students and parents, and offers support for the mental well-being of employees and students. I want to thank all of the GDOE team members, including our teachers, who participated in this hard work, our island-wide parent-teacher organization, the island-wide Board of Governing Students, the Guam Federation of Teachers, the Mayor's Council of Guam, the Governor and Lieutenant Governor through the Governor's Physicians Advisory Group, and their critical line agencies, including the Department of Public Works, the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Administration, and the Department of Public Health, Public Works. Thank you also to the legislature for holding this informational briefing and for considering our request to suspend certain laws relating to instructional hours and service learning during the coming school year. This request is included as part of the Guam Education Board Resolution number 2020-06, which you have as part of the information provided to you today. We provided that also to the governor, to the speaker, and to you as Committee on Education. I think it's yesterday. Si Diyos maasi sinceramente, Guajo si Maria Gutierrez. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair of the Board of Education. Mr. Superintendent, I'll go ahead and pass it back to you.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. And joining me today, we have a number of people. I'll introduce Deputy Superintendent Joe Sanchez, who really led our reopening task force throughout the past several months. We have Deputy Superintendent Erica Cruz, who joined us to handle the operations and safety policies and procedures for the reopening of the school year. We have Deputy Kelly Sukola. A lot of her COVID-19 efforts really centering around the deployment of personnel to assist at the front lines, as well as the food distribution that needed to take place at our school sites and through the summer. And then Deputy Superintendent Zenny Ascension, who is here handling all the numbers in terms of the amounts being spent and being paying our employees and ensuring everything goes smoothly during this unique time. We also have Nadine Cepeda, our district psychologist. She did play a critical role and can answer questions relative to social emotional wellness and that aspect of our plan. And then we do have Ms. Yolanda Gabriel and Tricia Taitagui. I'm not seeing of any other staff from special education relative to whether or not we have any questions about summer school for our extended school year for our students with disabilities. So with that said, thank you again for having this informational briefing. It's going to be the first of many opportunities to interact with you and with the general public regarding what's happening in our schools. As you recall, since March 16th, the GDOE has been active in response to the COVID-19 pandemic with our school nurses, attendance officers, school resource officers, and social workers detailed to the front lines to assist at ports of entry, public health facilities, quarantine facilities, and hospitals. Since March 23rd, administrators and staff have worked hard to distribute up to 12,000 school breakfasts and school lunches to our island's children. And in addition, 12,000 bags of commodities were given out to our needy households as part of our disaster household distribution. And we recently increased and expanded the income eligibility for our emergency food assistance program from 150% to 400% of poverty to be able to continue to provide broad food support through the coming weeks. With the decision to close schools for the remainder of the year, of the school year, that was when we first started what you will continue to see as our distance learning efforts, establishing an online resource page on our website, creating a partnership with Guam's public broadcasting service to provide weekly lessons to students. Recognizing that not all students had ready access to the internet or television, we organized grab and learn distributions of hard copy lessons to our families. Policies are adjusted with the board and with the help of the legislature to ensure that students were not penalized for the unprecedented disruption to the end of the school year. And we were able to graduate 1,920 students and recognize their accomplishments in our grad and go drive-through ceremonies in June. As we close down the school year, our attention had already shifted towards the summer and towards the potential opening of school year 2021. So for the summer, there is still an executive order in place that prohibits the opening of K-12 schools. And therefore, what we offer this summer is anchored around distance learning. For K-8, this means a continuation of our free resources online and our weekly lessons through PBS and hard copy. For our high schoolers, this means essentially course by correspondence with students completing their work at home and interacting with instructors virtually through video conference or telephone. Our high schoolers are working this summer to earn credit and potentially for those seniors to be able to graduate. Regarding the upcoming school year, I appointed in May a district school readiness task force to begin the work needed to prepare for school reopenings in the context of our current and projected COVID-19 response and recovery efforts. As I mentioned earlier, the task force is led by Deputy Superintendent Joe Sanchez, comprised of 6 committees, including safety and operations, curriculum and distance learning, socio-emotional wellness, personnel management, communications and outreach, and budget and finance. Driving the work of the task force is our agreement that safety comes first. And this means as we plan for school reopening, we work closely with the governor's office and the Department of Public Health to determine when it will be safe to open, and that as we plan our operations, we rely heavily on expert guidance, such as that provided by the Centers for Disease Control and other expert organizations. Teaching and learning then requires adjustment to comply with our safety requirements, which in this case means that distance learning will be an essential strategy for the coming year. Finally, we know our employees and students are coming out of a particularly traumatic period, and we know it's important to pay special attention to their socio-emotional well-being as we work to transition into a new school year. So the task force led a very transparent, inclusive, and thorough process to work through the challenging set of issues presented by the COVID-19 pandemic and to develop recommendations for management and the board to consider. Involved in the process were many administrators, teachers, students, staff, parents, union representatives, mayors, other agencies, and medical professionals. The effort culminated in a plan that was presented to members of the board who unanimously approved the proposed plan at their regular board meeting on June 30, 2020. In addition to the recommendations of the task force, the board voted to suspend several policies related to instructional time, service learning, and uniform requirements. And then the board also requests the legislature's support to suspend certain laws related to instructional hours and service learning for the coming school year as part of being able to implement this plan. So a copy of the board resolution, a summary of the plan, and a draft copy of our COVID-19 safety handbook have been provided. Technical difficulty. Have been provided to the committee for your review and information. We're happy to present in summary form that plan, which Deputies Joe Sanchez will have, and then be able to answer any questions. So the only other comment I would make, Madam Vice Chair and Vice Speaker, is that we are in a situation where safety is of a major concern. And so I want to just answer one question right off the top, which is from many in our public about reopening our schools and what that means in light of our health and safety situation. So I want to say unequivocally that we will not reopen schools unless we are in a position and authorized to do so by the Governor of Guam and by the Department of Public Health. At this stage, we continue to be in PCOR 2, and our conversations so far have been that we will not be able to open until we move into PCOR 3, and then the governor gives us the authority to do so. So with that said, even though we are targeting an August 11th opening date, should the public health situation continue and should it be determined by the governor and Department of Public Health that it is not safe to reopen our schools, we will have to consider a later date or other arrangements for the school year. So we will not be opening until it's safe to open. And then second, what we are proposing is a plan that represents our very best efforts in light of the fact that our options are either to completely shut our schools until we get back to normal, or to try to find ways through distance learning or through limited and altered schedules to be able to provide some semblance of a teaching and learning environment to our students. Should the conditions return to safer conditions, and should many of these safety parameters be relieved, again, I want to emphasize we would definitely look forward to an opportunity to bring our kids back to school and to ensure that we have more face-to-face interaction, not just between teachers and students, but we know our students want to be together as well. So what we are proposing is our first phase, considering the COVID-19 pandemic and the safety of our community. But should those safety issues go away and be relieved, we definitely join the rest of the community in hoping that we can return to some level of normal by having our students back in class and back with our teachers. So with that said, let me recognize Julieta Kaneni, who is our Chief Nursing Supervisor, who's joined us as well. And let me hand it off to Deputy Superintendent Joe Sanchez for a quick summary of our plan. Thank you.
Hello, Hafaday. So if I'm correct, you want to speak first about summer school. Is that correct, Vice Speaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Superintendent. And then to just go ahead and move forward to this is school year 2020 and the COVID-19 impacts.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So thank you for allowing me to do that and making me co-host. Our summer school program started mid-June. And we did try to wait as long as we could to determine whether or not we were going to be allowed to have face-to-face, meetings with our students. But ultimately, what ended up happening was we didn't get an approval. As you know, we didn't move forward with the PCORs and whatnot, so we were not approved to have face-to-face meetings with our students. And in accordance with our normal summer school program that's funded through our consolidated grant, the kindergarten through 8th grade program was always enrichment. So there was never a graded model that we used, or it was a long time ago since we've done that. And because of participation rates and whatnot, is they were always consolidated to certain schools. So what we did, knowing that we did not have a face-to-face model for the earlier grades, we decided to go 100% distance learning and through our online model. So we basically just expanded our end of the year platform that we were using, where we had reading, math, and character education. And there was a website that was created where parents and students can go to and pull down weekly lessons that were generated by our teachers. And I really want to give our teachers a lot of credit for the work that they've done. It's because these were not teachers just from particular schools. I mean, we pulled teachers from every single school throughout the island who had sent representatives, and this was all done on Zoom. Ms. Gutierrez noted that she was present at a lot of those sessions where they created the lessons together and then they uploaded them onto the website. So that became the model that we used for summer, and we expanded by including now social studies and science, and then a separate component for writing and reading. So before that was a combined course, and what we did is we separated the reading component, we separated the writing component, math continued to be separate, and then we added social studies and science, and then lastly, character education and life skills. We expanded the middle school program to make sure that all grades in middle school had their own levels. So 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade was included, and that website exists now. So I'm just going to give you an idea of what that looks like, if I may. So it's a website where parents can go and see a video that gives them an opening instruction. And mind you, because of what we're learning, the feedback that we're getting from parents, the feedback that we're getting from students, this is what we're using to gather a lot of our input and information about preparation for next school year. So when I start my presentation regarding school reopening, and you see the different models, the home learning model online, the home learning model hard copy, and the traditional face-to-face, a lot of that planning is based off the information that we're getting and the feedback that we're getting from parents here. So we had an introductory video right when they log onto the website. There's what we call help stations. This is monitored by the teachers. So any parent who does have email access can email any one of these grade levels. And there are teachers in all the content areas of math, science, social studies, and so on, who can respond to their questions. There's also, and I'm going to go all the way down here, just excuse me if this kind of makes your eyes a little blurry, but I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, which is where they can now download the content. So for the primary grades, kinder, first, and second grade, I'm not sure why it shows like that on my computer, intermediate grades, and then the middle school lessons. So all they need to do is click, for example, click on that piece. It takes them to a link, and then you see the different content areas that the parent just has to go to. Let's just pull up something from reading. And then you see the different weeks that will be pulled up. So let's just go to week 1. And then you see the lesson that's there. And every week we'll have the different pieces of content. So some of the things that we've learned, parents have asked us to, can you try to simplify it as much as possible? It's not, especially for the earlier grades, they want, real simple content. They want real simple formats that they can follow. We're gonna make sure that we continue to do that. We also want to make sure that the instructions for the activities are very clear and straightforward. When we did that at the end of the year, one of our challenges was teachers were writing their lessons like they were for other teachers. So they were using a lot of educational jargon. They were utilizing a lot of language that came directly out of the standards. So, a lot of parents found it difficult to read and difficult to understand. So we've asked the teachers to really rewrite the instructions so that, regular people out in the community can understand what it means. Don't break down reading so difficult as a phonemic awareness and all of these things. It's just, can your child pronounce the word and make the sound that letter actually represents? So, based on that feedback, we're really using that to kind of improve our summer school website, and that is going to translate into our work over the beginning of the school year. Now, the other part to the summer school program is our high school component. And the high school component has to be a little different because it cannot be just enrichment, because students are earning a grade. Last year, we were able to go off the third quarter grade. As everybody here knows, we went off the third quarter grade. It was an earned grade. Nobody got a freebie, right? I mean, well, I guess you can argue that they got a freebie for fourth quarter, but they still got a grade for third quarter. And, that was what we based our grade on. Now, in summer school, obviously, because it's a new course, there's nothing to base it on. So we absolutely had to make sure that the students turn their work in. So the closest that we could come to would be our home learning hard copy model or our home learning online model. So some of our students who do have internet access are engaging with the teachers online. They use Zoom conferencing, or they use Google Classroom. Google Classroom is what the system currently has. It's free. All of our email is Google. It's the G Suite, and whatnot. So it's already available to teachers, and it's already available to students. So that's one platform that they've been using consistently. Other teachers just do the Zoom sessions like what we have here. And of course, email back and forth is a big communication tool. For those students who do not have internet access, we also do the hard copy based curriculum where the teachers are preparing the copies and then they're distributing them weekly, and then they're having the students turn them back in. Now right now what's happening is really our best indicator of what next year is going to look like for both the online students as well as the hard copy students. And that is why we know that one thing is teacher preparation is absolutely important. We have a lot of teachers who are really working together. The summer school teachers are really doing like so much. I mean, they earn a stipend to work over the summer, but I guarantee you they are earning that stipend because when you work with students, either online or hard copy based, it's really individual work. It's like, if you're in a classroom of 30 students, you're able to give the instruction one time to 30 students. But when you're working with them on an individual basis, you're pretty much giving that instruction almost 30 times. Of course, you get to spend more time with the student. That's what our teachers are reporting to us, that they're really getting to know the student because they spend 10, 15, I think the average is now 15 to 20 minutes. But I've heard, I know 2 teachers that have told me they spend close to 30 to 40 minutes with their students at a time. Now, sometimes that's just once a week, sometimes it's 2 to 3 times a week, but I know that it's a substantial amount of time that they're spending with their students, and it's definitely something that happens after hours. So we've accounted for that in our planning for next school year. We've incorporated a student intervention day in the week where we realize that there's going to have to be some individualized support to the student, either on the phone or online, or the parents if they're going to be the ones taking care of their children at home. So that's what's happening with our high school program. Is it's done kind of weekly. The exchange is done online, or it's done through the hard copy based material, and then the teachers are grading the work that's provided to the students, and then they're providing them feedback and the instruction for the following week thereafter. What happens is we basically broke it up into 2 sessions. So a student is able to earn 0.5 credits, half credit the first session, and the other half credit the second session. We do have a number of students who are taking more than one course. The only thing is we've told the schools that if that's the case, you have to be very aware of the students' workload and making sure that they're actually doing, they're actually able to spend the time necessary for them to complete the coursework. If I'm not mistaken, we limited it to two full credits over the summer, so they are able to take more than one course. This summer school, we limited it to the expected number of graduates, those who were supposed to graduate this past school year, and those who are expected to graduate next year who are short of credits. So for the high school program, we have approximately 789 students who are participating, and we have an expected graduate number of 93 students this summer graduation, and that's tentatively scheduled for July 30th at 9 a.m. at Southern High School, and that's also planned to be a drive-through type style graduation ceremony. So that's the summer school program, Vice Speaker. If you would like me to continue on to the main presentation.
Yes, I just have one question, and
please.
if you and maybe the minority leader might have a question, but the status of the teachers and the staff that are working, are they working overtime? Are they being compensated for overtime hours? How are we compensating them properly for the amount of work that the team at GDOE has been contributing?
So if they're, because we also have regular central office staff who are working the summer school program. So if they are 12-month employees, either program coordinators or so on, they are not, it's just their regular duties. Most of them are exempt employees, so they work after hours and weekends as well. But if they're teacher status, meaning 9 months, and they're not on duty over the summer, they are paid a summer school stipend. The stipend for kinder through 8th grade is $2,000, and the stipend for high school is $2,500 per half credit.
All right, thank you. I just, we've been advocating for the public safety to receive additional compensation for working during this time of PCOR 1 and PCOR 2. So I just want to know that we have an equitable arm also for GDOE, because they have been out there and have been contributing to the community's needs. And so maybe that's another topic for another time. But if we can start thinking about that and discussing proper compensation during the pandemic time, and also the amount of time that they spend preparing this, the way forward for our students, that would be great. So I'm just going to ask the minority leader, this is the school year summer school program. So if you have any questions on the summer school program presentation, you're free to ask.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joe, you gave me a number of 789 and then 93. I believe the 93 was for graduates, for summer school graduates is anticipated?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and
yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Joe?
Oh, yes, ma'am. These are the students who, some of them may have graduated or should have graduated over the spring, but may have been missing 1 or 2 credits. So they make it up over the summer, or
okay.
Some of them may be super seniors from previous years graduating over the summer.
So you're saying that 93 are anticipated to graduate for the summer school. And what was the 789 number for?
Participants. So there's a total participants of 789.
That graduated.
No, they're in the program. They're earning credits, but they're not necessarily graduating over the summer. They're just earning credit recovery.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Madam Chair. I just wanted to verify that 789. Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Sanchez, thank you for your patience. Can we please proceed with the next presentation?
Absolutely, thank you. So I'm presenting the PowerPoint that was also presented to the Guam Education Board. So this was the slideshow that summarizes the major items in our task force, and I'm going to quickly kind of go through some of the points that the superintendent mentioned. We appointed the task force. We divided the task force into 6 subcommittees dealing with operations, curriculum and distance learning, personnel management, social and emotional wellness, communications, and public relations. Let me see, for some reason my screen is not showing. Let me see. Let me start that again. Just excuse me, I'm trying to make sure the lines with what you're seeing. Okay, so for some reason it's not showing me the slides, but I'm going to go ahead and do this so that you're able to just see the slides alongside. After the completion of our plan, what was that?
It's showing now.
Yeah, I'm trying to do. No, it's not on the slideshow, but it's okay. This is fine as long as you can see the screen. Our next steps is basically the continuation of a number of items that we've already been starting, as well as working towards reviewing the current policies that were waived and making sure that based on those policies that were waived, we're still going to be providing guidance to the schools regarding how to approach certain curriculum items and certain safety items. We're providing a substantial amount of implementation support for administrators and division heads. So really, we know that our big task ahead of us is taking all of the plans that the task force has completed and making sure that the schools have the support necessary for them to implement the plans at their school site. This includes training, debriefing sessions, opportunities for them to collaborate, problem-solving sessions where we've been doing this in the past, where we bring them together and kind of address continuous issues, as well as promoting communication at all levels. We know that even though there was a substantial amount of participation during the development of the plan, those discussions and debates continue on now. So we really want to make sure that teachers and administrators and staff, and most definitely parents and students, are continuously able to participate in the ongoing discussions. And that brings us to our fourth item, which is parents, students, and community presentations and outreach. So we're making sure that the community understands what our plan is. The idea is we don't want anyone to be surprised come the beginning of the school year. We don't want people showing up going, wow, what is this? We have to wear a mask, or, what is social distancing? We really want to make sure that the students and parents know what to expect at the beginning of the school year. We also know that our plans, as the superintendent noted, safety is our priority. So, unfortunately, in a perfect world, a lot of these models that we're using, a lot of these plans will not be happening separately. Distance learning should not be separate from face-to-face instruction, and home learning hard copy is really, honestly, it's just kind of like a big version of homework. I mean, it's really trying to make sure that, that students have the materials and they're doing the assignments and activities at home with their families. So ideally, all of these models would not be separate. They would be something that supplement each other. But in these cases, unfortunately, we puts us in a situation where we have to separate the students. So we want to make sure that the families know, the students know, and when they come to school, they're not surprised. This is what we asked the board to especially focus on, reviewing of the safety protocols, and we're going to start with the operations committee that talks thoroughly about the safety protocols, so that we all know what the expectations are. We asked the board to pay special attention to the student learning models and the alternating schedule, because we know that that's really a big change from kind of what we're used to in terms of our normal operations. We asked them to consider and waive particular policies that would be affected by our plan, as well as to review and give their blessing on how we intend to approach the policies related to employee accommodations. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to, not the mic, but the screen over to Ms. Erica, who's my co-chair for the task force, as well as the chair of the operations committee.
Hi, good evening. My name is Erica Cruz, Deputy Superintendent. I am the chair of the Operations Safety, Health, and Social Distancing Measures, and my task is to oversee the schools, and Christopher Anderson, who is also my chairperson, to oversee the safety component of our schools. And so as we met in April, we had determined that safety is paramount as we plan our students returning to our schools. And so we determined, firstly, that it would be, we have a population, obviously our school student enrollment is 28,000 plus, with our largest school of over 2,000. And we had determined that to address the safety concerns, that we would have 1/3 of our students attend school at a given time. from that 1/3 of students attending the school, we have broken our students down into cohorts A, B, and C. Cohorts A, B, and C will be broken down alphabetically. And then the schedule will look like an alternating schedule of cohort A going to school on, let's say on Monday, cohort B on Tuesday, and cohort C on Wednesday. And Mr. Sanchez will go a little more in depth with that process as he discusses the curriculum component of this plan. In our discussions, we have reviewed the CDC guidelines, as well as our weekly meetings with the governor's physicians group. We have also done multiple research on many school districts who are planning for the beginning of the school year. As we understand that we are not going back into our normal school year, this will be a new normal for us. And so we have looked into different states such as Texas, Oregon, and California. We have also looked into resources through CCSO and NASB as we developed our COVID handbook, which will be a part of our emergency response plan. Now, when we talk about 6 feet social, and we didn't use the word social, we use the word physical distancing at all times. And Joe is showing you a picture here. And so even though school is shut down pretty much, our school administrators are currently working on preparing our schools. So the slides that you'll be seeing are pictures that a few of our schools have started prepping for our students. So the first slide, if you can go back, is CL Titano Elementary School. Mr. Sanchez, that first slide. CL Titano Elementary School, and this is the plexiglass that you see, and this is something that you will see in all our offices, to include the nurse's office, the library, and the counselor's office. So any high traffic area offices will have plexiglass shields to help protect our employees as well as our visitors. This next slide is our hand washing station. So in addition to the restrooms with sinks, we are having hand washing stations such as this. This particular one is at central office. However, all schools will be retrofitted with a hand washing station in high traffic areas, so that students may, if they don't want to go to the restroom, there's an area outside next to the water fountains where students can wash their hands prior to eating, or after they've eaten, or before they go into the classrooms. This is a sample from MU Lujan Elementary School, and this is physical distancing greetings. And as you know, students, we have to teach our students how to physically distance. And so a lot of education is going to be taking place in the first week with our students. And this one is saying hello, blowing a kiss, waving to each other, elbow bump, bow to each other, foot bump. So our principals and our teachers are currently working on teaching students safety protocols such as hand washing, physically distancing, and so forth. This is one picture. This is over at Telefofo Elementary School, the physical distancing, and you see the pause there. This is Telefofo Elementary School Tigers, and this is the line for students to get into the classrooms, as well as lining up for the cafeteria. This other picture that you see is at Antolon Middle School. As you see in many of the establishments, they use decals. This particular one is cost effective, And what much will last a lot longer, it's actually a stencil here where it says, please keep your distance 6 feet apart. So this is throughout the campus in areas where students have to line up in the classrooms, waiting outside of the classrooms, as well as in the cafeteria. Our next slide is our walkways. As you know, even though we're going to have 1/3 of our students, which is far less than 100% of our students attending school, we have a walkway, the arrows pointing which way you're supposed to be walking so that students are not bumping against each other. And so there you see the arrows being provided, and then you also see the 6 feet distancing in the center. This is Antolon Middle School. This is another middle school. This is 6 feet distancing of the desks as recommended by the Centers for Disease Control. And outside of the classroom, it indicates the capacity of the classroom. And Joe, you can go to the next slide. The capacity of the classroom, which will indicate 8 students and 1 teacher. So our administrators have gone back to their schools based on the COVID-19 handbook that we provided and the distancing requirements. And so this one is an elementary school with social physical distancing of 6 feet. So you're looking at about 9 students. This is something that came up, and this is UPI Elementary School. And as you know, as we have 1/3 of our students in the classrooms, that means that you're going to have excess student desks. So this particular picture with physical distancing of students eating in the cafeteria, they utilize the excess desks and put it in the cafeteria instead of having the long cafeteria tables where it's a little more difficult to physically distance. This particular picture, we are required to have an isolation room. So this particular isolation room is being made by our facilities and maintenance group at JQ San Miguel Elementary School. Each isolation room is required to have a HEPA filter, and so we are in the process of surveying our administrators to determine what type of air conditioners they have in their school so that we can purchase HEPA filters for the isolation rooms. Joe, did you want to cover this or did you want me to cover?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying.
And so we have our operations protocol with COVID-19. It has been submitted to public health for review. Prior to that, we worked with the Physicians Advisory Group. They read through the document and provided recommendations. We provided that particular document to public health for review and approval. The next steps for our school administrators is to go back to their schools and develop a safety plan, school readiness safety plan that they will be utilizing. And it will go down, starting off with how students will enter the campus. They'll be thermal scanned as well as employees, how the cafeteria will look when students are eating, down to rainy days. How are we going to physically distance on a rainy day? How students are going to eat in the cafeteria, all of the protocols for using masks, how to use a mask, how to remove a mask, how many seconds you have to wash your hands, and then dismissal. How are students going to be dismissed? It's not going to be, all students will be dismissed at once. It will be in intervals so that students can safely physically distance as they ride the bus or picked up by their parents or obviously walking home. Some policies that we requested to be waived is Board Policy 346, which is the instructional time for elementary schools. Board Policy 381, which is service learning. Students may not be able to make their service learning hours due to this pandemic. Board Policy 401, the uniform policy. We do not want to burden parents anymore with purchasing new uniforms if they have to, or if they're matriculating from an elementary school to a middle school or middle school to high school. We know that there are many parents who have lost their jobs or are under shortened hours. So we don't want to burden our parents with purchasing uniforms. So that is we've asked for Board Policy 401, the uniform policy, to be waived. The attendance policy, which is BP Board Policy 411, we have asked for a waiver on that on the 173 days of instructional time with our students, and then Board Policy 602 on the textbook adoption policy.
Great, thank you, Erin. For the second subcommittee, it's curriculum and distance learning, which I lead along with Ms. Eloise Sanchez from my office, and teams of teachers from every school and school administrators and central office staff. This has been talked about, so I think most folks are familiar with the three models that we're trying to promote now. I'm going to switch over to the actual document that shows the distance learning plan, and I'm just going to cover the section regarding the three different components or three different learning models. Thank you. So as you'll see on your screen, I'm gonna try and make that a little bit bigger. You see the three learning models is home learning, online instruction. These are students who already have internet access. They need to have a computer. They need to have consistent internet access. If they have a printer, that's helpful, but not 100% necessary. And if they have a scanner, that's really helpful, but also not necessary, because we know that most phones, if you are, and we've tested this, if you are 5 megapixels and above, most phones are beyond that. But if you go, if you're around 5 megapixels on a phone, you can pretty much hold it steady, scan the document, and it looks really clean if you were to upload it. So really, having a scanner is kind of a nice to have, but not absolutely necessary. So far, we know that this has been one of the more popular selections. We sent out a parent and student survey. Now, of course, you know that whenever you send out a survey, the earliest data is the individuals who respond via online. So if they responded online or they responded on their phone, obviously those are the first groups first group of data that come up. And based on the folks who do have that kind of access who responded, home learning online instruction was one of the more popular selection. And based on that data also, it shows the individuals who do have access. Of those individuals, 80% are accessing it through a cell phone. So we're asking them, hey, if you're going to do it through a cell phone, that might be tough. It's possible, but especially if you're going to type and you're going to write and you're going to submit documents and whatnot, doing it through a cell phone might be a little difficult. But of that group that responded, about 50% or half of the group that responded indicated that they have access to a laptop and or a desktop. So that's a little bit more conducive to online instruction. But we are getting some good information. People do like to consider the online option, and then they'll eventually let their schools know if that's the model that they're going to select. Home learning actually comes in second. So there is a group of folks who are saying, we don't have the equipment, but we do want to keep our kids home. I mean, it is a good number of folks who may be fearful about them sending their kids to school. So the home learning model is available to them, and this is based on the surveys, the second highest selection. Now, the traditional in-face is the group that will be having alternating days where they would do ABC, as Ms. Cruz noted, and there would be, on Fridays, there would be an intervention support day for all groups of students as well. So this is the initial learning models that the schools, the parents have to choose from. We did ask them to please submit their selection by July 10th. If I know that there are some folks that were concerned about the date and said, "Oh my gosh, does that mean if I don't submit it, I'm not registered?" No, that's not the case. The idea is we need them to confirm or advocate or at least note which model they would like to participate in next year, because based on that information, that is what the school is going to use to create what is called their master schedule. My speaker, you know what this is, of course, and others. It's the schedule of all the teachers, what courses they teach, what period, and so on. And the elementary schools, it's the breakdown of how many teachers teach kinder and so on. Well, the added factor now is, potentially how many teachers are teaching online, how many teachers are teaching hard copy, or in some cases, are they doing kind of a combination of the two or the three? So that will be a school-based decision. How they do their master schedule will be up to the school. How they distribute their teachers will be entirely up to the school. Of course, like we mentioned earlier about the support sessions we have with the schools, we have a lot of opportunities for the principals to collaborate and think through some of these options at their school site. We also provide teachers a weekly opportunity to discuss some of these options. So we really want them to analyze what their student data looks like. For any student or parent who does not submit their model of learning registration form, the automatic assumption is that they're going to be a face-to-face student, so we will schedule them accordingly. The number one question that has come up over the last week or so since we announced this was, are they allowed to switch models? And although from an administrative standpoint, we're like, okay, if you switch models, it's kind of hard because we're trying to plan the school year and trying to plan what the schedule is going to look like. But ultimately, we've discussed this with some principals that I don't think we can stop them. I mean, really, it's the whole point of offering these models is to accommodate families and parents while at the same time addressing the COVID crisis and the pandemic. So although from an administrative standpoint, we would really like them to stay with the model, at least for the grading period, at least for the quarter or at least for the semester, because it will affect their grade or may affect, some of the information that's being, that the students trying to learn. But at the same time, I think we're going to ultimately have to be flexible, especially if there are some circumstances within the family where they say, we tried to do the home learning, we tried to do the online instruction, but it's just not working. I want to send my child for face-to-face. So I think that's something we can accommodate with the families. Last thing I wanted to kind of just talk a little bit more about, and then we will go ahead and move into the next item was the technology. We have a strong plan for technology that talks about the infusion of technology in the libraries, computer labs, and classroom. And this is something that's not new. So we've been working on this for the past couple of years, where we're continuing to build the capacity of teachers to utilize the equipment. During the ARA days back in 2010, 2011, what we learned was that sometimes the large-scale purchase of technology without the accompanying professional development really puts the technology almost waste. It's almost a waste because the technology ends up staying in the library and nobody checks it out, and it collects dust. So we're really trying over the past couple of years is to continuously build the capacity of teachers to utilize the technology, utilize the mobile carts, utilize the mobile labs and the computer labs so that they can incorporate technology into their regular instruction, whether it be going online, submitting work, via email and using other platforms. So we're continuing on with that work. Now, with the COVID funding, we are able to kind of speed up our purchases of the technology. And our first round is to make sure that all of our libraries, the computer labs, and the classrooms are stocked with computers that students and teachers can access. And because of the 1/3 division, is we believe that every classroom now can be stocked up with enough computers that instruction can be done entirely through computer based. So the teacher will be physically there, but having the students being able to engage with the computers at the same time will do a couple of things. Number one is it's exposing them to the technology and raising their capacity to utilize the technology for educational purposes and not just social media. But it also lessens the exchange of paper, which we know is, which is one of those risks that causes infection, is exchanging paper, exchanging documents, exchanging books, and so on. So we want to make sure that as much as possible we lessen that exchange in the classroom. And I know that one question comes up about the textbooks that we are ordering. We are ordering hard copy materials. We are ordering hard copy textbooks. All of those textbooks, we've just confirmed, come with an online component. So there's an ebook version that automatically is included with all of our hard copy version. So that's definitely something that we are going to incorporate, both a combination of the hard copy version as well as the online resources that are provided with it. The second phase to that is the opening of community learning centers and community hotspots, where we want to open the schools in the evening. We're looking at 15 to 20 schools. We're trying to strategically place them where people can access them regularly. I'll use an example like Price Elementary School, Weddingale Elementary School, Ontalan. They're right in the middle of where most people are able to move through. And if we open their cafeterias, where we laid out the computers, we open the Wi-Fi signal, from possibly 4 o'clock to maybe 8 o'clock in the evening, or on the weekends, on Saturdays, students can come and utilize the Wi-Fi signal or utilize the computers if they don't have computers at home. Now, I know when we started announcing that, one of the questions was, well, what if my child's school is far away? I said, okay, well, I know from a high school standpoint or a middle school standpoint, you're thinking that if I live in Agana Heights, my school is all the way at Jose Rios, which is all the way down in Petey. But you don't need to go to your school that you attend. You can go to the school that's in your village. So if I live in Sinahanya, I can go to CL Taitano and utilize the equipment there. And of course, we're gonna make sure that we're careful about scheduling time. Like, we don't necessarily want the big kids there at the same time as the little kids. So we're going to make sure that there's a schedule so that, they know elementary students can be from this time to this time, and then older students can be from this time to this time. And of course, having parents there and things like that. But, we really think that this is the potential of opening up the schools to like the village so that more people can actually participate and utilize the resources that are honestly, when we start talking more about this, it just makes sense because the computers are there, the internet signal is there. So, why not open it up to the community? And based on our initial surveys, the individuals who have said that they don't have consistent internet access have also said that it is highly likely that they would utilize these community learning centers. Now, obviously, the ones who already have internet access and they don't need to do it, their data says no, they're not going to use it. But for those who have openly said that they don't have consistent internet access, there's a high likelihood that they will go to their community school to utilize the resource. So we're very hopeful, and we think that has a lot of potential. And then the last phase is what kind of a lot of folks are talking about, is possibly a pilot phase of expansion of the equipment to where students and parents are able to check out the equipment to utilize at home to participate in distance learning activities. Now, we don't think it would be a good idea to just blanket this and just pass equipment out to everybody, but we do want to design kind of a small scale pilot program to see the feasibility of allowing students and families to check out the equipment on a regular basis, almost like checking out a library book. So that encompasses our major kind of efforts towards distance learning and the schedule for next school year. But in addition to the academic side, a big part of our concern is social and emotional wellness. Now, we know that with the enormous amount of stress that folks are experiencing and feeling, it's we don't want to think that we would just kind of jump into the curriculum all of a sudden and immediately start with the technology and so on. And we want to make sure that both our students and our personnel are prepared, for what's to come. So at this time, I'd like to pass this over to our school psychologist, our district psychologist, Ms. Nadine Cepeda, who will talk a little bit about our social and emotional wellness efforts. So Nadine.
All right, thank you, Vice Speaker. And so I'm the chair for the social emotional wellness, and my co-chair was Doris. She is the supervisor for social workers, and it also consists of other members that were team leaders voted upon or among the counselors. So counselors were represented. We also had Head Start because we're looking at something right elementary and developmentally. It's quite different when you're talking and working with elementary kids. And we also had the 4 or 3, to include myself, the district school psychologist. And so when we were looking at things, we need to remember this is a huge adjustment. This is the new norm. And I want to say it's really in forefront because coming from a background of mental health, our superintendent has made this known that this is just as important. And truly, we've known this coming from a mental health. People can't come into work or a student can't come in and learn if they're, again, having anxiety or just readjustment to some of these issues and coming back to the uncertainty. There's a lot of unknowns. And so we know with facts and information given to them, that is power. Power, right? Knowledge is power. And so we've, again, if you look at COVID-19, there are 5 areas of concerns. And again, I kind of briefly said that this earlier, this morning or this afternoon. 1, it's going to be stress or distress. 2 is loss and grief. 3 is trauma. 4 is anxiety. And 5 is depression. These are 5 areas that we're really focused on. We have provided, the committee has provided 5 fact sheets, again, that will go out for little kids, to parents, to our DO personnel. And in the area of focus, it looks, what is it in layman's terms? What are the signs and symptoms that we need to look at? So if you see this, and if you see this, we know we need to refer, right? To get screened and make sure that they're okay. And then how do you cope with this? Talk about how are those coping skills after they seek that help, right? And then if you need more specialized based on the screeners, school counselors will be trained to look at those 5 different areas of screeners. And if they're low to medium, they will get 3 to 5 sessions from the school counselors. And if it's high, that means they're required to do more with more specialization. And that's someone like a mental health professional who's licensed. And so we are going to really, really focus on training in collaboration with Guam Behavioral Health, because we know we can't do this alone. We know that we have to take care of our DOE's personnel and provide support. And that's why we're going to do heavy training in the month of July. We're going to start with our school administrators. We're going to actually, the concept is, if you're familiar with the Universal Pyramid PBIS framework, we have the 80%, which is tier 1. And that's, like Deputy Joe had said, that's our community, right? And then you go up to tier 2, and that's more, okay, they need more supports. And that's like agencies, right, in our community. Then we go up, and that's 15%. We go up to tier 3, and those are the ones that are really struggling, already identified and have diagnosis. That's really specific type of agencies like courts and, Guam Behavioral Health. And so when we look at this, we're looking at it identified because screeners are the best way to look at it. Now we're looking at, okay, these are the kids that come in. What about the kids that are not there or are going to be doing online? We are going to really rely on our school counselors and our teachers. They know their kids better at their schools. If they're concerned about these behaviors, what happened to our student, then they would notify and the counselor can do follow-up. This is key to any care and continuum of care, is that we should connect with the parents. If they're teenagers, connect with the teenagers, ask how they're doing and checking in. And so this is how we're going to approach it. In the fact sheet, we do provide also a flow chart. And when we do that, we also talk about self-care. We're even going to talk about how, for school administrators and supervisors, how do you talk to your staff who may have some of these concerns of the uncertainty? This is all new to us, but it's not new to us when you do have these feelings. How do you work with them? And so as we talk about this, we are going to provide supports to the student, their parents and family, and third, DOE personnel. In order to receive our students and to be a healthy mind matters, and it does. In order to receive our children, we need to make sure that our personnel is able and supported to take these and receive our students when we open our schools. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nadine. So in closing, this will conclude kind of our summary of our main components, and I just wanted to say that this is quite a task that we have ahead of us, and one of the things that we've been expressing to not just our teachers and our administrators internally, but to everyone that we speak to, that this is really an opportunity for us to rethink education. I mean, if you look at the history of education in terms of our current model, I mean, this came about during the times of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, there's so many things that continue to exist that started back then. I mean, where did we get the bell? Where did we get the bell ringing for class to class? Well, that used to be the whistle that they would toot when it's time for lunch or to go home. And when you look at classrooms that were in the 1800s, they look like classrooms today. I mean, yeah, there's more computers and there's TV screens all over the place, but you still have desks and rows and things like that. And one of the things that I was telling our teachers the other day and our school administrators is that there's so many different models now of education, not just online instruction, but there's so many non-traditional ways of getting degrees and whatnot. I mean, half of us in the DOE, we graduated from alternative models. I got my master's degree from the University of Portland, but I never stepped foot in Portland until just a couple of years ago. We get degrees, we get doctoral degrees online, we get so many things in different ways, and I will defend that alternative model to the teeth because I feel that I benefited from it. So who's to say that traditional education is the only right way that we have to do things? I mean, who says that you have to learn from 8:30 to 3:30 and then don't worry about it until tomorrow? I mean, education should be continuous. Now, of course, it's unfortunate that we have to be forced to be put into this situation, but this really gives us the chance to rethink about what it means to be educated. And, really, I hate to use a cliche, but really think out of the box. I mean, we're in a situation that may never get us back to normal. I mean, we may never, ever see a traditional classroom the way it was just 6 months ago. But, at the same time, I don't think that's necessarily bad. I mean, I think this is a good chance for us to rethink what we do. So I am humbled by this opportunity to share this with you, Vice Speaker, and Minority Leader, as well as the people of Guam. And Mr. Fernandez and Mrs. Gutierrez, I think we can open it up for questions, if Vice Speaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sanchez, Deputy Superintendent. I must say that your team, did a great job on laying out plans and moving forward with the impacts of COVID. And I want to commend the schools for their creative ways of social distancing and also considering safety measures. So it was very inspiring to see the work of the staff there and also the input of the principals and the teachers on how we are evolving to address what is changing, probably a new normal situation that we will have to face for quite some time. I had about 20 questions. You answered 17 with your presentation. So I just have just a little bit nuances. How are the teachers adjusting and the principals and the staff adjusting to this curriculum requirement? It seems the model that you shared will require maybe the teachers to teach the same lesson multiple times than they normally do, maybe double the amount. And so what are some concerns are you hearing from our teachers about the new curriculum model the cohort model that you are going to be implementing?
So what you just said is exactly that. That kind of seems to be the first one. Is at first they were concerned that they were going to be teaching kind of like large groups, within each of those three models. And at first they thought they were going to be teaching all three at the same time. So whether or not they teach all three at the same time, that is not a central office decision. That would be at the school site. And what we've explained to the administrators is they really have to speak with their teachers, look at their student data, look at what was selected in the model of learning registration, and see how many students are online, see how many students are hard copy, and see how many students are traditional face-to-face. And based on that data, they have to take a look at their current teaching pool. I believe we have a commitment, internally, that we are not going to be removing FTEs at this point. I mean, we clearly have to look at maximizing our personnel, but at the same time, we're not going to simply just remove a teaching position from schools, quickly, right? So we have to really look at the teaching pool at each site, and then the school principal and the leadership team will have to determine how that's going to be configured, whether or not there's going to be a team of teachers teaching online, a team of teachers teaching hard copy. And in the case of secondary, they actually have more flexibility than elementary does, because in secondary you have periods. So for example, it's possible that a teacher will have the same 5 periods. They have 3 periods of face-to-face and then 2 periods of online. So that helps spread out the teaching load across all 3 of the different models. And one of the things that the GFT reminded us is, they're saying, Joe, there's a lot of talk out there about if you teach online, you can teach more students. And we know that that's not true. Just because you're teaching online, there's some people out there who have this belief that, oh yeah, you can teach 40 students, you can teach 50 students. Well, you can present, and there's a difference. You can present to 30, 40. I mean, I've presented to 300, 400 teachers at one time. In fact, Mrs. Gutierrez knows that our teacher meetings, they're up to 200, sometimes in elementary, it's up to 300 participants at once because they could all log on. But there is no way that I'm going to teach a class of that many students, right? So the class size is going to be the same. You're looking at a class size of about 25 to 30, even if it's an online course. So that was one of the concerns. The biggest concern that the teachers brought up is, are their class sizes going to increase? Are they going to be teaching more than one model? And again, that has to be discussed at the school site. But generally, what we will see is that whatever model they are doing, they are not going to be, we have no plans of exceeding their current class size. So they will still be managing the same number of students. In the traditional face-to-face, you're exactly right. It's basically the same lesson 3 times with those students. Now, what we're trying to design, and we already have a team of folks trying to design these models where the students need to understand that when they are not in school, that is not a day off. So if they're a student in A group, you would have an assignment to do for, let's say your day is Monday, you would have work to do on Tuesday, and you have work to do on Wednesday. And then when you come back on Thursday, the teacher would, greet you back, and then you would do a review, and you would kind of go over the material. But a lot of that has to do with having a rhythm. So we have our professional learning communities where the teachers collaborate across the school and district, where we want to set it up so that there's a rhythm of, okay, the students know that this is when content is taught, then they practice when they go home. Hopefully their parents can help them with the work, and then when they come back, they turn their work in and they can ask questions from their teachers and so on. So that was brought up, is the fact that when they have different days, the teacher would actually be repeating the lesson 3 times a day. Another concern, which thankfully the board was able to address, was when are they going to provide supports to either the online students or the hard copy students, or even the face-to-face students when they're away, if they're teaching the entire time, right? And based on our summer school work that we're doing now. And again, we're really appreciative of the work the teachers are doing. And I know, and thank you for mentioning about compensation, and recognizing that, because although we do provide them a stipend, man, these teachers are really earning that stipend, because when you do an individualized program like this, when you're, it's a home learning model, you're on the phone with these students a lot. I mean, some of them don't have internet access, so you're not emailing them stuff. So you're kind of talking them through the assignment, and you're providing supports to them kind of on a regular basis. And at least two teachers that I've spoken to, have spent 30 to 40 minutes, with some of their students. The average is about 15 to 20. So it does take a lot of time. Now, granted, and I don't know if it's across the board, but they're not complaining. They're just letting us know that these models do take a lot of time, and that really is what prompted us to request for the Friday. So the Friday schedule, where it's called a student intervention day, as well as a parent support day, is really set aside so the teachers can have like office hours. The plan is to have them in their classroom. Every classroom has a working phone line, but they don't necessarily all have phones. So we're making sure that all the phone lines work. And then we're through our funds, through our federal funding, we have a budget for replacing the telephones that are not operable in the classroom. So that way the students can actually call the classroom on that day and speak with the teacher, or the parents can call and speak with the teacher as well. So that's the second concern. The third concern is having some consistency across the district, which is really good. I'm glad that they're asking that, because they recognize, especially in secondary, when you have different teachers, if all of those teachers have a different way of approaching these models, it's going to drive the student nuts. I mean, having 6 online courses, is tough. I've in my entire career, or my entire education, I've only taken 2 online courses myself, and it's tough to do. So these students are expected, if they're going to go online, they're doing it 6 classes. If it's hard copy, trying to figure that out. So the teachers kind of noted that there should be some consistency in how this is delivered. So we do want to make sure that we have a consistent learning management system, which is a platform that is used to deliver content. We want to make sure that the protocols and expectations are consistent. For example, for the hard copy model, we don't want one teacher to say, okay, pick it up on Monday, and then another teacher says, okay, you have to come on Wednesdays. Or we're going to be very consistent as to when the material is picked up, when is the material returned back to the school, so that the parents are not confused or have to accommodate different manners for each teacher that the child has. So far, those are the 3 main ideas that or main concerns that have come up.
Vice Speaker, if I may, first of all, I wanted to provide Joe just a couple seconds of recess for his voice, but I just wanted to say, when Joe mentioned that he logged on with 300 to 400 teachers, that's not an exaggeration. The work that actually started right after we shut down and we started to turn our attention to distance learning. So it started back then, and it just continued all the way until, just up to today, being able to call upon teachers who are volunteering their time. In no way have we required them to be there. We've reached out to them, we've invited them, and at any meeting you'll see 200, at the most 300 to 400 teachers who are listening in, participating, providing input, and that really is just remarkable. So I wanted to just say that in public to recognize them, and also the Guam Federation of Teachers. We did meet. Not only have they been present at these meetings, but we did meet with Mr. Fedenko and Mr. Sharma from the GFT, and we talked to them about, look, we're heading into this year. We want to keep an open line of communication. We want to have regular meetings to address issues. But really, the spirit of that conversation was jointly, we're in a crisis. Let's do what we need to do to keep our kids and our employees safe. And then let's try to get our mission of teaching and learning done. And we'll just address issues as they come up, as long as we can maintain that communication. So I think across the board, That's really a good sign of collaboration, and we appreciate all the time that our teachers put in on their own summertime to really help us sort all these challenging issues out.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And, I think maybe this is a proper time that we can start going into the details and the board passing a resolution to reassess the competitive wage study. I've seen a lot of DOE members contributing enormous amounts of their time way above their salary requirements and also way above their summer stipends. Summer school's teaching, it's not just from, I don't know, perhaps 9 to 5 or even less than that. These guys are on the phone or still working curriculum into the late evening. So I think that we need to address those things, and the board can come up with a resolution. I would be more than happy to push it forward and advocate for that and ask my colleagues for their support. Just a couple of questions, and then the minority leader, I'm sure she may have questions as well. And so thank you for your patience, minority leader. The hand washing stations that you put in front of in the hallways of the schools, I want to commend the great work and the forward thinking of that. But also, we mentioned in the past about water dispensing stations where you can actually bring your own water bottle. Are we needing extra appropriation for that, or are we moving forward and installing that within all of our school campuses?
We're moving forward and installing that in our campuses, ma'am.
That's wonderful news. Thank you. And the implementation for the distance learning and the plan that you have to expand the Wi-Fi services within each school, open it up for the students, is this coming from the CARES 41.5 million? And will we be able to sustain it as we move forward?
Yes, thank you for that. The funding that we're using overall for the school year and curriculum in particular is not just the COVID funds. What we've done is when we received the invitation to submit an application for the COVID funding, is we took a look at our current consolidated grant for FY19, our upcoming consolidated grant. We have multiple grants going on at the same time. Our consolidated grant for fiscal year 20 application and the COVID requirements. And what we tried to do is we tried to align all of the different activities and place them in the appropriate funding source. So we knew that the COVID funding was going to be a one-time shot. There's no guarantee that there's going to be more funding. So we didn't want to use it for any service or activity that required continuous funding. And what we've done is we've put all of that into our consolidated grant. So the subscriptions for the learning management system, the subscription for all of the online content and other resources, the subscriptions for the Wi-Fi access, both at the school site and potentially at the community learning centers or the community hotspots. We've put that into the consolidated grant, which is, as you know, is an annual source of funding. And we've moved all of our, or not all, because we still purchase some of technology through the consolidated grant, but we've moved most of the technology orders into the COVID funding. So a lot of it goes to the laptops, a lot of it goes to the hard copy instructional materials. So we know that we don't normally get to buy a textbook for every student. We're gonna do that with the COVID funds. We're gonna prioritize math, and then English language arts. And if we have enough money, we're going to move into science and social studies. But right now, we're pretty much guaranteed math and English language arts that would be covered with all of the funding, as well as majority. Not majority, but a good amount is being spent on safety, the personal protective equipment, the hand washing stations, the hand sanitizer, and the cleaning supplies. And in addition to what we noted about trying to not have students purchase school uniforms, at the direction of the superintendent, is $2 million that's going to be spent on school supplies. So we've basically told all the schools we are not going to send home a supply list. with the students. So students are not going to be asked to purchase their own school supplies. Now we know that some of them will do it anyway, like they'll want their own notebook or they'll want their own kind of pencil, but basically the school is not going to ask them to do that. We are going to supply all the students with the needed supplies for this coming school year. So yeah, most of the funding that's going to be used through COVID is funding that is going to be either a one-shot purchase or focused just for this year. And anything that needs to be sustained is going to be put into or has already been put into our consolidated grant. And I think it's good to say that we've actually gotten approval already for our FY20 grant. In fact, that was just a couple of days ago. So we're really happy that our consolidated grant was approved.
Well, great work and congratulations. And so I think this is a good thing. The teachers won't have to be paying out of pocket for the materials that they need in the classroom as well. And they won't have to wait the next school year to receive the materials that they requested the previous year, right? So this is the first time in a very long time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you. And then, you know, when we talk about special education, there's a lot of hands-on interaction that is needed with the children with disabilities and special needs. Are we moving forward to see if we can do like any COVID testing for them? And, you know, just because I'm thinking that there's be more integration needed, especially those with ED. Those are those that are placed in the ED classrooms. Is there a plan for that?
I'm just gonna maybe start off, and then I'll have Ms. Yolanda, and I don't know if Ms. Erica wants to jump in too, but the Special Education Division has been a part of our planning since the very beginning. They've been in attendance at all of our meetings with the administrators and teachers, and what we've asked every group to do. This inclusive of English learners and teachers who also teach a variety of different types of classes, is to already start thinking ahead about what are some of the implications for the plans that we have. So for example, one-to-one aides and students who, and assistants who may not be able to social distance. Like, I mean, a one-to-one aide sometimes has to be right there with their students. So there has to be protocols and safety measures put in place so that they're able to continue to provide that service to the students. This also goes with the specialized classrooms, the resource rooms, and other types of services that either social distancing might not be possible or may be requiring additional types of personal protective equipment. We do have specialized orders for gloves and face masks for personnel who may need those in addition to what the regular employees need. Of course, because of the IEP, this will all be done kind of on a more individualized basis, but that's the general guidance that we've been providing, at least on our end, with regards to addressing those particular needs. Ms. Yolanda, Ms. Erica, did you guys want to jump in and add additional there?
Absolutely, you're correct, Deputy Joe. And also the additional guidance that we have with reference to personnel, we are going to get that guidance with our school health personnel, Ms. Julieta, as well as the Department of Health and Social Services. We are really looking on how the parameters on how we're able to kind of promote the health and safety, not only for our students, but also our staff. So with the additional use of PPEs, maybe we are really considering it in great utmost need, as well as the consideration and the sensitivity for some of our students who are not able to wear PPEs or masks. So we are looking into that so that we are able to assure the health and safety of our students as well as our staff.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Julieta, thank you for being here. I see you eagerly waiting. So, and I appreciate your interaction with us in the previous months, helping us to understand how the DOE will approach this and from your perspective. One last question, and this is for Ms. Nadine Cepeda. We talked about the social and emotional wellness. I just wanted to perhaps understand with the impacts, because I understand that some of the counselors, or maybe a majority of your counselors and teachers, they have invested a a considerable amount of time of collecting data and doing administrative work. And now it seems like we are transitioning to do the social and emotional wellness, one-to-one support, interaction with the student and their families. Will they be able to manage the two, or perhaps they can take a break from the data collection and start moving forward with the one-to-one interaction with the students?
So that's a good question. In fact, I talked to Deputy Joe recently about one of the things they've talked about was the district-wide assessments, and that's actually quite different now because they're actually doing things online. And at any time, please, Deputy Joe, correct me. So it's actually really weighed down some of the work that they used to do manually, and that's no longer existing. It's all doing things uploading. I really think from the very get-go, since I've been on board, I've actually got my second master's from the University of Guam in the counseling program on both tracks, school counseling as well as the community mental health track. I think counselors have a specialization, and I know they do. They have the foundation, they just need the training. As many kids as we can save, and I'm just going to quote something. SAMHSA has released so much money on two areas because they see that the COVID will impact two areas, and one is suicide. They've just released money, and I'm not quite sure where they got the money, but Guam Behavioral Health was awarded $850,000. They know that this increase with withdrawal isolation will lead to many other things, and they're anticipating an increase of suicide. The other thing is substance use, that people are going to use substance to deal and not want to deal with the isolation, withdrawal. We need each other. And that's why we were looking at when we say, physical distancing, really, that's really the term, because when we're talking about, we know we love you, but we still need to be connected, or we care about you. We're creatures made that way, right? And so when we think about this, school counselors are the best people. We only have four school psychologists in the district, yet we're providing as many possible mental health services to those students that actually need in tier 3, as I was referring back to the PBIS. So again, ASCA came out. ASCA is the model, and they use the guidelines, right? And to me, anyone can read that. However, when we think about this, we need to use that specialized skill that they have, and that's counseling. They have that degree, the foundation and the framework. They need the training. We need them to help us be the front line and the soldiers to screen these people. Senator, even prior to this in our substance abuse groups, they were actually we used the SPURT, which is an evidence-based process that we're using them as the school counselors to do the screener, or which we use CRAFT. And it's an evidence-based practice screener. And so if we use more of them, we can save lives. We can identify these students who are high risk. And even with all the work we're doing, we may miss somebody. But if we can save one child, that's making a difference in this world. And so when you say, okay, the teachers, back up. The counselors, this is really what they should be doing. If they look at the ASCA, it doesn't take, honestly, a genius to read it. It's saying they should do more. The ratio should be 1 to 250, but nationally, there are not enough school counselors. We know we're looking at 500 ratio to 1. How do we do this? We need to do small groups. And even at that, because of the distancing, we're looking at that we have to extend that to Skype and telehealth. And in fact, some kids rather do it on the phone. And with HIPAA restrictions, and with some of them not being so heavily guarded with the HIPAA restriction, and they kind of level some of those required right in place. They want students are calling using WhatsApp. Hey, I just want to check in. And to me, that's better than nothing. And we need to use these counselors. And just to let you know, Vice Speaker, one of the things is we're going to use the team concept, team leaders. To include, the administrator is going to have a team that's going to include a counselor who's going to be trained throughout the year, not just this one time, because we know skill is built over time. You practice it, you get better at it. And so if we do this and we keep providing this to the team leaders, that's going to include a counselor because they have the specialization, meaning in counseling, supportive counseling. They go back and they will help train the other teachers. And that's a concept because there's just too many staff. And then we want to also provide the support for when the DOE personnel needs it. Okay, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, that was perfect. Thank you so much. And, thank you for really paying attention to this social issue. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We may not reach everyone, but even just one life we can save, that's a big step. And every life matters. So I appreciate your compassion and your passion for this work. Minority Leader, thank you for your patience, and please feel free to take as long as you need.
Oh, no. I know everyone's tired, and sometimes when you're at the end and they're hungry too, you better make it fast because they'll like you better. So like you, Madam Chair, they answered a lot of my questions, and I greatly appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for all your hard work. And it's so good to see some of friends that I used to work with when I come to the school. Yolanda, Erica, of course, Joe, back in the days. It's good to still, Felicia, Angel, still see you there, Zenny as well. Thank you so much for continuing on all these years, and providing a wealth of your knowledge and continue to support the children of Guam. I really appreciate that. The hand sanitizers, Erica, will you be providing everyday hand sanitizers to children when they come in?
Yes.
Okay.
The hand sanitizers where there's high traffic areas will be the ones that are on the walls, the pumps. And so then each individual classroom will have hand sanitizers.
So it's not like you're going to provide them small bottles.
No.
Okay.
No, it's going to be the large pump hand sanitizer.
And will the buses also be prepared to the buses or any kind of, will there be buses utilized?
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'll go mas. Shoot, Erica.
Okay, shoot. Okay, so we've been communicating with DPW since the start, because we know that DPW is crucial to getting our kids to school and home. And so we've met with Frank Titano, the bus superintendent, and we discussed how they would do the social distancing or the physical distancing. And it will be every other seat that the students will be sitting in. If they are a family or families living together, then they will be able to sit together. Once the students exit the bus, the bus drivers will sanitize the seats, and they will not be doing temperature checks. That's for safety purposes. They will not be doing that as the students enter the bus. However, when students come to school, they will receive or will be given a temperature check to ensure that students do not have a fever.
Will you be providing the hand sanitizers on the bus or, in an area for them?
Okay. No, as the students exit the bus, students will be encouraged to either wash their hands, right? Because there will be hand washing facilities, as well as hand sanitizers in the classroom.
Well, thank you.
In high traffic areas.
Okay. Great job on your presentation, Erica, as always. I really particularly like the 12 different greetings that you actually had up there with the elbow, the foot, the, air hug that everybody has incorporated in their lives. So it's nice to show that there are alternatives to greeting your friends. And that was really nice to see. It was very, very cute. I hope all the schools have that too. So,
our principals and our teachers and our staff, they are really creative. This was not from central office to do these things. They've done this all on their own. And so I'd like to recognize our administrators and our employees, our 12-month employees and our teachers for all the hard work that they're putting in, especially during the summer when really it should be kind of a downtime, but they know that they're anticipating a new normal this upcoming school year. So kudos to DOE administrators and employees.
Bravo. Thank you for that. Please extend that thanks from us as well. And I like, Joe, the part you mentioned, the model that you're going to create to provide consistency on delivering any kind of teaching material, that it stays consistent. I think that's very important. And one of the things I wanted to make a comment on the importance of the active parental and student engagement is very, very critical on this new way of teaching. And it's so important for those two components, not only with the teachers, but the parent and student, how you can incorporate assistance and ideas to engage those two components, other than school. So I appreciate you. I noticed you did have it on your one of the documents that was provided to me by the vice chair or the vice speaker. So I appreciate seeing that very much. And my last question would be, Superintendent, a great team. You have a great team. I mean, just putting this task force together and starting early in the game is just commendable for doing it early in the game. I'm not one that likes to be a procrastinator, so I like to see other people, it helps because you can adjust for any mistakes moving forward. But of course, this is definitely a new learning for everybody, not just for our students and our parents and teachers, but everybody, and so in the event when everything is set up for this school year coming up, and if they find a vaccine or something to try and stop the spread of this disease or this virus that's going out, and now everything is safe again, what are your plans then when that happens?
No, thank you, Senator. We want to get the message. We want to have the message be really clear that if it were up to us, and if there were no COVID-19 pandemic to deal with, it really would be our priority to have our kids back at school. And we know we know that the face-to-face instruction is important and can't be fully replaced by going online. But we also know that our kids need to be need to be interacting with each other, need to be socializing with each other as part of growing up, as part of learning, and it's what we want to see. So I just want to state that we're doing this because we're in a particular public health crisis that we've got to get through. But once we see a relaxation of the safety parameters, we do hope that we can relax and maybe return back to some semblance of a normal type of school year and school day. What we're trying to do, and the way we've planned this out, and the way we've thought through the phasing, even though it's going to require a lot of adjustment from employees, from students, from parents, is that we also want to avoid, what we consider to be a disruptive school year in terms of going one direction,
Right.
then things change and you revert, and then you go back again. And, we don't want it to be disruptive. And, this is something where we want to provide some stability and some predictability and reliability in what might otherwise be a chaotic environment. So we did take a very conservative approach, and we recognize that. And what we hope to do is gradually return back to more normal types of operations and procedures and processes and school days like we were familiar with. But we also know that our community has gone through such a traumatic period of time that we know we just can't, change direction one day and then change it back the next week. We've got to, provide that sense of stability and gradual change to help everybody adjust to that situation. So I think, when we started this, we did target June 30th as a board's, decision, because we wanted to take the rest of this time, not just to work at the school level to implement these changes, not only to begin a lot of the training that we know needs to happen for all of our employees, but also to do the communication and outreach that will help our parents adjust and understand what to expect, again, in 4 to 6 weeks. And so that's a lot of our time will be spent on those three areas from now going forward.
Thank you. As well as you got prepared for this, you're prepared. I know that there's probably another task force standing by for an exit or a gradual exit as well. But I'm very curious to see the grades that come out of this. I mean, how well students do if they find that this type of one-on-one learning and less in the classroom is actually working and help the children get better grades, then wow, maybe this may be the new norm, So I guess we will all see. But thank you again, everyone, and to you too, Nadine. I know all the work you're doing there. I really appreciate your insight, and then the help in your area. I greatly appreciate it. And to my cousin, Juliet, thank you again. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity as well. And have a good dinner, everyone. Sorry it took too long for me. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Minority Leader. Yes, Madam Chairwoman of the board.
Vice Speaker, as our conversation yesterday regarding the compensation wages review for DOE, and now that you brought it to my attention, we are going to move forward with this because, like I say, like your grandma say, there's nothing impossible if we do it, okay? So I am going to put Superintendent to task with HR because we're gonna proceed with this. I'm not going to let it go anymore. This is the teachers, the DOE positions that are not in any other government agencies have to be reviewed. So rest assured that you brought it to my attention. We discussed this yesterday. I'm moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Superintendent, for humbly accepting the task. Yeah, that was the last thing I just wanted to make sure that we could probably review is just to see the adequate and fair compensation for all the work that DOE has done from the beginning to date and in the future. I mean, DOE has really stepped up to the plate. They've gone above and beyond with every solution provided for our community and for our children. So thank you for giving all of your heart and your energy and sacrificing your family time to come up with the solutions for our island's children. We greatly appreciate it. And I hope to see you again. And if there's anything that Mr. Superintendent, you or anyone need with Team DOE for our support, I would greatly advocate for DOE. There's just no words to say how honored and humbled I am to be your oversight chair. You have done an exceptional job. So thank you so much, all of you, for all the sacrifice that you have done during this time. I greatly appreciate it. And so now, if there are no further questions or testimonies, and the people thank you too. You probably don't get that often, and you probably always get that microscope, but the people are grateful for the work that you do. If there are no further questions or testimonies, we will conclude this virtual informational briefing. The committee will continue to accept written testimony for the next 3 working days. Testimonies may be sent via email to Senator T.C. Nelson at guamlegislature.org or delivered to the office of Vice Speaker Telena Nelson, Suite 202 Alpha 173 Espinal Avenue, Hagåtña, Guam, 96910. It is now 6:59 in the evening. This virtual information hearing is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. God bless you, and God bless the work of your hands. Take care. Thank you.